Welcome back to today's special news report. We are about to revisit one of the most controversial and haunting sequences of events in political history, something that might seem like it belongs in a dark novel, yet unfolded right before the public eye. And the central figure in this story is none other than Donald Trump, former president of the United States, real estate mogul, reality TV star, and a man who has consistently left both the media and international public opinion frozen with his relationships and statements. But this time, we are not merely talking about Trump as a politician or an entertainment figure. We are diving deep into a murky, suspicion-filled connection, one between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, Jeffrey Epstein, the name forever tied to sex scandals involving underage girls, shadowy networks of power, and an intricate web of relationships with the global elite. The original video we are basing this on captures a series of moments and statements from Trump, spanning from the 1990s to his entry into politics. What stands out most is the way he spoke about Epstein, both friendly and suggestive, enough to make any viewer wonder what was the true nature of this relationship. In an old interview, Trump did not hesitate to describe Epstein as a terrific guy, someone who likes women, especially young ones. The very moment that quote is replayed in the video, you can almost feel the audience's collective pause. This was not some throwaway remark. It was a statement revealing an attitude and awareness on Trump's part at that time worth serious scrutiny. When the camera pans to images of Trump and Epstein appearing together at parties, we see a picture completely different from the respectable presidential image Trump later sought to project. These are vivid, colorful snapshots from a time when power, money, and lavish parties were the glue binding together some of the most powerful men in the world. But at the same time, it's also the backdrop for dark secrets that the public only began to hear whispers about during later investigations. What's interesting and deeply ironic is that when Epstein was arrested and the scandal exploded, Trump quickly changed his tone. In later statements, he claimed he was not a fan of Epstein and had cut ties long ago. Yet the video cleverly juxtaposes these denials with earlier images of the two being close, creating a stark contrast that forces viewers to ask, is this the truth or just a political escape act? In some segments, we even see Trump relaxed, laughing, and even teasing women at events attended by Epstein. These aren't just entertainment moments, they are critical puzzle pieces to understanding his context and personality at that time. And when placed within the larger picture, the relationship between two powerful yet deeply scandal-ridden men, it raises more questions than it answers. Of course, our job here is not to convict, but to report what has been recorded, the statements, the images, and the contradictions in the main character's words. Yet it's undeniable that when pieced together, they form a logical thread of complex relationships, where morality, power, and personal interests do not always walk hand in hand. And here, our first part ends on a very unfinished note, because this story has only revealed its surface, some statements, a few images, a handful of public moments of closeness, but behind it lies an entire network of events, testimonies, and other figures yet to emerge. In the next part, we will begin tracing the lines of these connections to see whether the picture Trump wants the public to see truly matches the one history will record. We continue our journey into the relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, a relationship that, according to Trump himself, was nothing special, yet the images and recordings left behind tell a very different story. In the previous part, we went over the early photos and statements, those moments when Trump described Epstein as a terrific guy who likes women, particularly young women. But now, we're going to dive deeper into a crucial period, the time when the two didn't just appear together at lavish parties, but shared the same social network, an elite circle where the most powerful figures in the world met not only to discuss business, but also to indulge in a lifestyle most of the public had never seen. The video shows several scenes at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's luxurious Florida resort, a symbol of power and wealth, and a gathering place for political, economic, and unforgettable private events. And unsurprisingly, Jeffrey Epstein was there. In many shots, we see the two men speaking closely, their eyes and gestures showing a comfort level you don't typically have if your relationship is just casual acquaintance. What's notable is that while Trump later denied being a fan of Epstein, these very moments reveal something else. At that time, Epstein was far from just an ordinary guest. He was invited to private events where Trump was the host, events that happened behind closed doors, away from the constant gaze of the press. And this is what makes the public ask, if this was just a regular social relationship, why so many intimate, familiar moments? In another segment of the video, we see Trump standing next to Epstein, both watching young women dance at a party. Trump points, laughs, and says something into Epstein's ear. The camera doesn't catch the exact words, but their body language speaks volumes. These are two men sharing the same language and the same special interest in women, and more specifically, young women. From a media perspective, these images are evidence that cannot be dismissed. They vividly illustrate the contradiction between Trump's current denials and his past behavior. Once an image is recorded, it carries a weight that no denial can easily erase. But it doesn't stop at images. The video also presents clips from interviews Trump gave before entering the White House, where he openly admitted he likes beauty and doesn't mind enjoying life. Such remarks in isolation might simply reflect his personality, but when paired with his frequent presence alongside someone like Epstein, the picture turns much darker. Another interesting detail the video cleverly highlights is Trump's silence during a certain period, when Epstein began facing his first lawsuits. There were no public statements defending his friend, but also no strong condemnations. Just a puzzling quiet, and that silence only fuels speculation. Did Trump know more than he wanted the public to believe? Watching these clips feels like flipping through a secret dossier, where every photo, every comment, every appearance is another piece of a puzzle, and when these pieces are stacked together, they stop looking like coincidences. They start forming a coherent narrative, a story of two powerful and influential men who shared not only dinners and deals, but also a shadowy part of their private lives. What's both intriguing and frustrating is that, to this day, there has been no detailed, transparent explanation from Trump about this whole picture. All denials are short, vague, and often accompanied by a quick change of subject. Meanwhile, the old images and quotes remain, preserved on tape and now available for the world to watch again. This part of the story ends with a particularly striking video, Trump on camera saying he has never been close friends with Epstein and that everybody knows it, but right after that, the video cuts directly to a photo of the two laughing together shoulder to shoulder at a private party. The contrast isn't just ironic, it's a reminder that in politics, words and truth don't always walk hand in hand. And that's where we leave off in part 2, a pause that's just long enough to realize that things are only beginning to come into sharper focus. Because in the next part, we'll see a dramatic shift, from the days of public partying and camaraderie to the explosive scandal when Epstein became the center of one of the most shocking sexual crime cases in the world. At this stage, the picture of Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein begins to shift in tone. If in the past they appeared together at private parties, amid music, lights, and laughter, now the setting has changed. The press, investigators, and the public are scrutinizing that connection under the light of serious criminal allegations. Jeffrey Epstein, a wealthy financier once seen as a mysterious figure respected by the elite, had now become a name synonymous with sexual crimes. In 2005, Palm Beach police began investigating after a woman claimed her underage daughter had been abused by Epstein. This was the first turning point, setting off a chain of events that led to a slew of accusations, witnesses, and undeniable evidence. What's particularly interesting and controversial is that during this investigation period, Donald Trump's response stood out compared to many other powerful figures who had known Epstein. Instead of openly defending or supporting his friend, Trump maintained a vague, non-committal stance. In fact, some reports indicated that Trump had cut ties with Epstein after a dispute involving the Mar-a-Lago club. However, the big question remained, was this cutting ties a moral decision or simply a move to avoid being dragged into scandal as the stench of controversy began to rise? The video shows that many people were skeptical because the previous relationship between the two men was far from casual. In one replayed clip, we see Trump in the 1990s speaking about knowing Epstein. He clearly states that Epstein likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. When this comment is placed against the backdrop of later allegations, it sends chills down the viewer's spine. It's not just an offhand remark. It could be a sign that Trump already knew something about Epstein's sexual preferences, and if that's the case, he can't claim total ignorance. At the same time, the video presents a series of images and documents showing Epstein's wide network of relationships with celebrities, from politicians and royalty to business tycoons. This network formed an invisible shield, allowing the powerful to try to stay clear of the storm of public outrage. Trump, with his sharp instinct for reading political and media landscapes, seemed to understand that this was the moment to create distance, at least in terms of public image. But image distance does not erase what once existed. Journalists began digging through old photos, videos, and Epstein's guest lists, where Donald Trump's name appeared more than once. Each time his name came up, the question was repeated. If it was just a passing acquaintance, why is there so much evidence of closeness? Another notable point in the video is the coverage of the 2008 trial. Epstein secured a controversial plea deal, only sentenced to 18 months in prison, and in reality, serving about 13 months with many privileges. This deal, signed off by attorney Alexander Acosta, was heavily criticized for being too lenient. Meanwhile, Trump did not voice any objection to this unusually light sentence, even though by then he was no longer publicly close to Epstein. That silence once again became a shadowy mark. The middle section of the video blends satirical narration with archival footage, emphasizing the contradictions between Trump then and Trump later. In one frame, Trump smiles and shakes Epstein's hand. In the next, he tells a TV interviewer he's not a fan and hardly knows anything about him. This contrast isn't just humorous, it pushes the audience to question the reliability of his statements. A particularly striking detail the video mentions is the accusation in a 2016 civil lawsuit, in which an anonymous woman claimed she had been abused by both Epstein and Trump when she was only 13 years old. Although the lawsuit was withdrawn and never went to court, its mere existence remains a black mark on Trump's public record, especially when set against the backdrop of his connection to Epstein. The more one watches, the clearer it becomes that this is not just a story about two men, but about power, privilege, and how those at the top of society can maneuver around or evade justice. Epstein is a symbol of elite corruption, and Trump, whether he likes it or not, was pulled into that whirlpool because of their shared past. This segment ends in 2019, when Epstein was arrested a second time on charges of trafficking minors for sex. The world was shocked. The global press reported non-stop, and every past relationship Epstein had was dragged back into the spotlight. When asked, Trump immediately said he was not a fan and emphasized that he had cut ties long ago. but with all the old images, videos, and statements on record, that claim raised more questions than it answered. And that's where part 3 leaves off, right at the moment when the media storm is reaching its peak, before the Epstein case veers into an entirely unexpected direction. In part 4, we'll enter the period where Epstein's mysterious death not only shocked the world, but also ignited a wave of conspiracy theories, with Trump's name still among those being mentioned. In 2019, when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested again on charges of trafficking underage girls and transporting victims across borders, the whole world erupted. This wasn't just an ordinary sex crime case. It was a bomb that shook the very foundations of the global elite. The list of people who had socialized with Epstein was dubbed by the media as the Black Book, and in that book, Donald Trump's name was one of the most prominent. When pressed by the media, Trump quickly delivered a short, cutting response. "I'm not a fan of his, and I haven't spoken to him in 15 years. We had a falling out, and I banned him from Mar-a-Lago." On the surface, this seemed like a reasonable denial, but for anyone who had seen footage from the 1990s and early 2000s, it was a hard turn to believe. Images of Trump and Epstein standing together, chatting, laughing, those remain preserved in archival footage, and such memories are not easily erased from the public's mind. It was at this point that conspiracy theories began to sprout. Some believed Epstein possessed an enormous cache of sensitive information about powerful figures, including politicians, billionaires, and royalty. And when Epstein died in his jail cell in August 2019, just weeks after his arrest, the story took an entirely different turn. According to the official report, Epstein died by hanging himself, but the circumstances were too strange. Malfunctioning surveillance cameras, guards falling asleep, and numerous security procedures ignored. To many, this was no mere accident. It was a deliberate cleanup. The phrase, "Epstein didn't kill himself," spread like wildfire across the internet, becoming a global meme. Amid this atmosphere, Trump did not miss the chance to feed the wave of suspicion. Instead of staying silent or adopting a neutral tone, he shared a video from a conservative blogger suggesting that former President Bill Clinton was connected to Epstein's death. This was both a political move, attacking a Democratic rival, and a way to distance himself from the scandal. On the flip side, critics argued that Trump was not entirely innocent either. They reminded the public that Alexander Acosta, the man who signed the lenient 2008 plea deal for Epstein, was later appointed by Trump as Secretary of Labor, and when the Epstein case blew up in 2019, public pressure forced Acosta to resign. The video we're watching delves deep into this point. Archival footage of Trump smiling alongside Epstein in the 90s is intercut with clips of Trump claiming he was never a fan and knew very little about him. Under The Daily Show's satirical lens, this contrast becomes the perfect example of the rewrite history tactic, recasting one's personal past in a favorable light when circumstances change. Another key part of the video is how it analyzes Trump's reaction to Epstein's death. Instead of being cautious, Trump repeatedly dropped vague, suggestive comments, as if fanning the public's imagination about explosive secrets Epstein took to the grave. This served both as a distraction and an opportunity to redirect public suspicion toward his political rivals. However, for those familiar with Trump's media style, this was nothing new. From his business days to his presidency, he has always known how to turn any story, no matter how damaging, into a performance that works in his favor. But the problem is, past images and archival material don't disappear easily. Every time the 1992 Mar-a-Lago footage resurfaces, showing Trump and Epstein eyeing young women, the conversation reignites. The video's underlying point, and what makes viewers reflect, is how power can render some people seemingly immune to consequences. For years, Epstein escaped the law through connections and vast wealth. Trump, thanks to his fame and media savvy, has repeatedly survived scandals that might have destroyed anyone else. But Epstein's death leaves a dangerous vacuum. If he truly possessed files, photographs, or proof of wrongdoing by powerful figures, then those secrets may now have been transferred to someone else. And the possibility of a new keeper of secrets ensures that this story has never truly ended. As the video nears the end of this segment, the narration steers the audience toward a question. Have we really learned everything we need to know? Or is most of the story still hidden, surfacing only through occasional tidbits, veiled hints, and old archival clips? Part 4 closes with the image of Trump leaving a press conference, refusing to answer questions about his relationship with Epstein. He smiles, waves, and walks away, leaving behind a flurry of shouted questions and trailing cameras. That moment feels both like a full stop and a reminder that this story is far from over. And in part 5, the video steps into more dangerous territory. Allegations that have never been proven, fragments of a larger puzzle, and the way the Trump-Epstein connection continues to haunt American politics to this day. The final part of the video doesn't just revisit old images or past statements. It widens the lens to include today's political and media landscape, where the name Epstein still echoes as a chilling reminder. From the start, The Daily Show posed a central question. Do we truly know everything about the relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein? Or are most of the details still just scattered pieces stitched together from speculation, memories, and brief clips? One highlight of this section is how the program explores contradictions in Trump's own words over the years. In old interviews, Trump described Epstein as a terrific guy and someone who likes beautiful women as much as I do.